Hello and welcome to the other side of the shop, or part of the other side of the shop anyway, that you don't normally see when we're doing our Porsches and Prophecies meeting. This is the junky side. This is where a lot of the work takes place, and I've just got stuff everywhere, so I have to apologize for that. It is a mess right now, and I haven't had time to organize or clean anything up. However, I thought today it might be worthwhile to come on here and discuss something, as today is May 27th, tomorrow is the 28th, and it just seems to me like there's something about the 28th, and I want to get into this real quick. Maybe nothing, but it might be something. I'm excited about it. Should we be watching May 28th? Is there a reason prophetically to be watching May 28th? Yeah, I'm going to say there is. It doesn't mean something's going to happen. But it's an interesting watch day, and I'm going to call it a high watch day, even though it may not be on many people's radar. So I very quickly wrote out some information so that I don't forget it. And as you may know, I do a lot of writing, and so I wrote this out today, and I want to share it briefly. And you decide, and we'll just see. So I don't know. May 28th is interesting. That doesn't mean that it has to be May 28th of this year. However, based on the prophetic timeline that God put in the Psalms, this seems to be the year. So anyway, and I do believe that the rapture resurrection event will happen in the spring. I used to think that it would be fall. I don't really believe that anymore. There's a lot of evidence, especially like in the Song of Songs, that points to springtime. So let me read this and you decide. And I hope I don't regret posting this. I was just working today, and it just kept kind of bugging me that I know something and that I have interconnections here that I haven't shared, and so I thought I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'm not one to set dates at all, and again, I'm not saying that tomorrow is anything, May 28th, but it could be. There's been a lot of could be's along this ride, and a lot of you probably feel like you've seen a lot of days come and go, and this one might also, but I thought it was worth mentioning, so here we go. Here at Porsches, and by the way, I'm leaning on an engine that I've been working on, and I'm just kind of sitting on this squatty little work chair, and I've got my notes here, so I'm just going to read this. Here at Porsches and Prophecy, we've hinted around about May 28th for a few months now, ever since I had a vivid dream about that very specific date. I've never mentioned that before. I'm not one to rely on dreams without other witnesses, so I've never gone into any detail about it. But it was a highly symbolic dream that ended with May 28th being prominently stated. So much so that it woke me up, and I've had no problem remembering it, and that doesn't happen to me very often. So after that dream, I began looking at that specific date from many different angles and prophetic lenses, and I have found it to be a very interesting day of convergence. That doesn't mean that anything will happen this year on May 28th, and I'm not saying the rapture is going to happen tomorrow on the 28th, but I'm not saying it won't either. However, there are so many interesting things that interconnect with tomorrow's date that I thought I should share some of them here at this last moment. And then I actually have to get back to work because I do have to make a living here. And I've not been doing a very good job of that, by the way. The first thing I noticed after my dream about May 28th was that it's a Wednesday. That means it's a fourth day. Jesus is the door, and the number 4 relates to Jesus as the door. And I've covered that many times, so if you don't understand what I'm saying, please go back and find that in older videos, because we've talked about it many times. It's also a new moon and a new month in Israel. Tomorrow is the 1st of Sivan on the Jewish calendar. Sivan means season in Hebrew, and boy have we been in the season. And that isn't much to go by. Normally I wouldn't put any weight on that at all, but there's a lot more, so hold on. The second thing I noticed is that it's 45 days after what I believe to be Jesus' resurrection day based on the Essene calendar. The number 45 relates to Psalm 45, which I call the wedding psalm of the Messiah. If my understanding of the Essene calendar is correct, that means Jesus ascended at day 40, 5 days prior to tomorrow, again almost 2,000 years ago, and the Holy Spirit descended on the 50th day. So 45 is right in the middle, and as we have discovered over the last few months, that Jesus always makes a return in the middle, as he did in the Garden of Gethsemane, and as you can see from my teaching on the Song of Solomon, etc. We've covered that quite a few times. He always comes at the beginning, the middle, and the end. So here again, we had Jesus ascend on the 40th. Now, the 45th, which would be in the middle, and it's not a 7, I get that, but it's a 10. He hasn't returned at anything in the middle of a 10, and then we have the 50th day. So, is it perfect? No. Does that mean it's not valid? No. So, in my estimation, all of that isn't enough to really make a big deal of it, or claim it as a high watch day, but there's more, okay? After I mentioned some of this to my study group at Porches and Prophecy, Ruth Ann, one of the girls that comes religiously, did some digging and discovered 2 witnesses in the Gospels that possibly connect May 28 or 528 to the rapture resurrection. So here's both John 5:28 and Luke 5:28. So here's Luke 5:28. We'll start with that. And Levi, and it's interesting how it's not a full statement. It's kind of a partial statement. Both Luke and John. And Levi got up, left everything, and followed him. Okay, that symbolizes the rapture. Here's the context of this verse. Jesus called him in verse 27. In verse 28, without any hesitation, Levi got up and followed Jesus. Then, in verse 29, they're at a banquet with fellow tax collectors and sinners. I think that's symbolic of us. If you can't see the rapture symbolism and all of that, then go back and watch some of our previous videos. I've even discussed this exact verse before and brought up the fact that instead of being called Matthew here, he's called Levi, which is really interesting because Levi makes him a priest, and we are kings and priests, correct? So here is John 5:28. Do not marvel at this, for the hour is coming in which all who are in the graves will hear his voice. So we have Luke 5:28 as the rapture and John 5:28 as the resurrection. Is that just a coincidence, or has the Lord hidden all of this for us to find here at the last minute? But wait, there's still more. Tomorrow, May 28th, will be the 600th day of Israel's war that began on October 7th, when militants and civilians from Gaza invaded and massacred over 1,000 innocent Israelis and took hundreds of captives. Okay, you might say, what's the big deal with the number 600? Well, the number 600 is sort of a big deal in the Bible. Noah was 600 years old when he and his family were sealed up in the ark and the flood began. That's Genesis 7. I'm sure you know the prophetic meaning of that. If you've been following prophecy at all, you know what Noah means to all of this. Goliath, who we recently studied, had a spear that weighed 600 shekels. He came out twice a day with his 600 shekel weapon to taunt the Israelites over 40 days, which equals 80 times. David had 3 brothers who witnessed this and 4 brothers who didn't. Israel will be 80 years old in 2028/2029. If David's 3 brothers who saw the 600 shekel spear represent 3 years, then that brings us to this year, Israel's 77th year. And if the 600 shekel weapon represents 600 days of the war, then that's tomorrow. Here's another. The Song of Songs, which we just discussed this week, has a very strange verse where the object of affection is compared to a filly or a mare, which are both female horses. That's kind of an odd thing to compare your beloved to. And I get people say, well, it's Solomon talking about his bride to be, and Solomon loved horses, and especially Egyptian horses and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe. But anyway, we and Israel are brides and are symbolically female according to Bible prophecy. We are Leah and Israel is Rachel. Verse 9 of Song of Songs goes on to compare us, fillies, to Pharaoh's chariots. Here's verse 9 from the Orthodox Jewish Bible. O my love, to a Susah, which is a mare, among the chariots of Pharaoh do I compare thee. In Exodus 14, we're told that Pharaoh sent 600 choice chariots after Israel, and all of the chariots of Egypt. So, Exodus makes a subtle and mysterious distinction between 600 choice chariots and the rest of them, which has no number. So here's the actual 2 verses. It's Exodus 14, 6 through 7. So he made ready his chariot and took his people with him. Now this is Pharaoh chasing after Israel, going to the Red Sea. Also, he took 600 choice chariots and all the chariots of Egypt with captains over every one of them. So why is the 600 being called out separately from the rest of the chariots? 600 choice chariots. And then, oh yeah, by the way, the rest of the chariots with captains and so on. Very interesting. So I think it's odd. I think it's odd, and I think it was done that way for a reason. And that's what, when you're studying deeply in the Bible, you got to find these things and say, let's dig into that a little bit more, because that's really odd. That's how God hid a lot of mysteries. So, there are more 600s that connect to Solomon, honestly, and we just covered Solomon. But this would get way too long, so I had to cut this off. Here's an interesting one in the book of Judges. A man named Shamgar, which means sword in Hebrew, became the 3rd judge over Israel. Not much is mentioned about him. In fact, he only gets one verse, which is verse 31 of Judges 3, which says, after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who killed 600 men of the Philistines. Now, Philistines, where did they live? Basically Gaza. With an ox goad, and he also delivered Israel. That sounds like a connection to me, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so again, tomorrow, May 28th, is the 600th day of this war. They've been counting the days since it started, which I find odd. We've never done that. I don't recall in any of the wars that we've been in, and we've been in a lot of them here in America, having a countdown every day. The number 600 seems to relate to Israel at war, and specifically to victory in war. It also seems to mysteriously connect to the rapture and resurrection event, which we're all waiting for. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but the world stage is set, and we've seen how things can change in an instant. Maybe we'll be called home tomorrow, and maybe we won't. But we're being faithful and watching for his soon return. Regardless, he's coming soon, and we need to be ready, and we need to finish strong for his glory. Please pray like never before and share Jesus like never before. And that's all I got for today. So I pray and hope you are encouraged. If we're still here come Thursday, still be encouraged, because he's coming soon. There's just a lot of convergence right now, I believe, for tomorrow, and there's a lot more evidence. It's all, I'm thinking, if we were in the court of law, this would all be circumstantial evidence. So there's no proof. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. It just seems worthy enough to mention, so I wanted to mention it. Anyway, so that's where we're at. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all your support. Please always like and share and subscribe and all that great stuff. And thank you for your prayers. And I am praying for you guys. If you've asked for prayer, you're getting prayer. And thank you for your support financially also. I couldn't have done what I've done over the last year without it. I'll be honest with you, because I've mentioned many times I don't get a lot of work done here anymore because I'm so hyper focused on fulfilling my mission. And if God keeps showing me things, it's up to me to keep digging and finish the work. So anyway, God bless you. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful tomorrow, May 28th.